Thank you, everyone, for joining. I'm super excited because I used to work with Deepak at my previous organization, and I have not seen you in some time. So I just wanted to thank you for joining Live, Laugh, Launch. And everyone, this is Deepak Deolalikar. Did I get that correct?
Perfect.
Perfect. And he has 15 years experiencing building enterprise B2B products. I was a big fan when I worked with him. He is currently now the co-founder at Ziply.AI. And Ziply is a demand gen AI platform that enables content creation and distribution at scale through advocacy, helping B2B teams amplify their brand and generate pipeline. He is also an early founder at iCharts, which went through 3 pivots. Later, he spent 5 years at Sugar CRM. That's where I met him, where he launched Sugar Reporting, Sugar Hint, Sugar GDPR, and Sugar Serve. And then he went on 2 years as a VP and general manager for Brighthedge, where he created a new add-on product for SMB customers. And prior to building products, Deepak spent 12 years working in Big Five consulting, helping Fortune 100 clients with their analytics and technology strategy. Deepak is currently an advisor at Berkeley Skydeck, where he has coached 15 startups and provides masterclasses on customer discovery, finding the first niche, competitive analysis, market sizing, and pitching to enterprises. He's also a coach at the PM Studio program at UC Berkeley, and also the faculty at Institute of Product Leadership, where he teaches lean entrepreneurship, product management fundamentals, and is a mentor on an executive MBA track. And he's also trained over 300 PMs. Deepak, what do you do on your spare time?
So I actually play music too, and I teach music also.
Cool.
I didn't put that in my bio.
What do you play? Which instruments?
There's a very ancient instrument in India called tabla. It's a percussion drum. We play with 2 hands.
Very
And
cool.
it's used as an accompanying instrument for a variety of music genres, but also as a solo. So I have about 10, 15 students here that I teach at home. That's a weekend job.
Wow.
Amazing. You're very busy.
Yeah, you're definitely busy. You have a
Yes.
lot going on and a lot to share. So we're super excited again to have you here.
Thank
And
you.
I mentioned like Ziply.AI. Can you tell us what Ziply.AI is?
So Ziply is a B2B platform for B2B go-to-market teams. And the problem we are trying to solve is that B2B marketing teams are challenged with generating pipeline. And everybody wants pipeline. Everybody wants leads. Where do you get your leads from? Email, cold calling, outbound, or ads, but they are losing their efficacy. I'm not saying they're going to go away, but emails are spam, with Apple's privacy. Emails don't even reach the intended audience. Cold calling can be very, the lead quality is so poor. And then ads can be expensive and it's, too broad. How do you reach people where you want to reach them? So we solve this problem through content that can be targeted towards your ICP, your ideal customer profile. And the way we do that is, buying behavior has changed a little bit over the last few years. Nobody wants to see what the companies are saying. So I actually made a post just last week. Imagine you have 2 LinkedIn posts, one from the company and one from an individual, let's say the CEO or even a salesperson. And it's exactly the same content. Which one has the higher probability of being scrolled through on your mobile? The company one, right? So keep posting on the company pages. Sure, you want to build your brand, but how about taking your employees and asking them to post as well? Now, the problem is it's too cumbersome. People will send you a Slack message, hey, can you post this? And somebody will cut and paste and so on. So we are automating that process as well. Everybody wants to grow their followers on LinkedIn on the company side of things, but they already know you. How do you reach people who don't know you?
Mm-hmm.
So imagine your CEO has a network of 10,000 followers. Your salespeople, let's say you have a sales team, 10 people in your sales team. Each one of them have an average of 2,000 to 3,000 followers. And salespeople connect with customers all the time. They came from their previous jobs. They are the hidden network. That's who you want to reach out to. And we've added one more audience type here with your channel partners. Now, think of channel partners and your resellers. They are connecting on LinkedIn to their prospects because they want to sell your product. So it is like very easy. It's like win-win for the partners and the vendors to communicate your message through the channel partners as well. So imagine the same LinkedIn post. Let's say it's a point of view post. And now you put it on your company page, maybe some of your followers will see it. But now you amplify that through employees, channel partners, even customers, for example. Let's say you did a case study, ask your customer to share it too. And now you're reaching the hidden network of these people, and your message is getting seen by them now. So that's the amplification and advocacy part of it.
And so say I'm one of the sales reps, right? And I have the same messaging. Can I change the tone if my target market is different than, let's say, Katie, who's also in sales and her target is different?
Yeah. So that was one of the things we learned early on, that, hey, so I had this company message and then everybody's posting the same thing again and again and again. That's boring. And actually, even LinkedIn will actually penalize you for that. So there are three couple of methods. We have a concept of variants. So when you create a content, you can actually create multiple variants. So you can tell, we use AI for that. So you say, hey, AI, take this message and make a variant as if the CEO is going to say it. Make another variant as if my channel partner is going to say it. So for example, let's say I'm doing a webinar. Hey, we are proud to host a webinar on blah, blah, blah. But the partner is not going to say we are proud to host. Partner will say something like, we are partnering with, whatever, Cisco or Sugar, and we would love for our customers to join too. So some slightly different messaging, right? So you can actually create variants out of that. So that's number one. Number two, the end audience, when they receive the message, it's a request to post, right? So can they edit it? That's actually at the discretion of the person who created the content. Sometimes you want on-brand content. You don't want anybody to change it. But sometimes you might say that, hey, this is an opinion piece. Hey, can you add your own color to it as well? And what we do is we will use AI for them to give them suggestions too. Now, I know when you set up these advocates, I actually know who you are because you connected your LinkedIn profile, right? So I know your title. I know which department you belong to. So when we train the AI to say, okay, rewrite this part of the message from their perspective, and this person is a pre-sales consultant at the partner. So then it will try to change the message accordingly. So what you now have is that original message, like a thought leadership message or a product update. Some things cannot be changed. Like if it is a webinar, it's a webinar. There's no point of changing that. But if it is a point of view or an opinion or a thought leadership, there's a lot of room to add your own color to it. And we enable that.
I love that because I previously used something similar. We at the company that we all worked for, right? But we only had access to use the same message. So when it didn't sound like me, and then after a while to see 100 people sending out the same message, it didn't seem what's the word, organic.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
In fact, actually, our vision is, and AI is getting better by the second, not even days, like second. Our next vision is that we will actually, for every individual is, so right now you can create manually a variant, but you can create like 6, 7 variants. But what if I can dynamically create variants on the fly, depending upon who the person is who's actually doing the posting, what is their profile, what is their style of writing? How do I know that? Because I know how they posted in the past, right? So I'm going to look at, so we are building this whole graph of people and understanding their writing style, their posting style, how they should say things depending upon their title and so on, and personalize every post. So it's the same message going out, but set differently, maybe with different angles.
That's amazing.
Very
and
cool.
That's like definitely going to be a time saver for those social media manager content writers that have to post.
So that's one part of what Ziply does. And we also help writing content as well. So let's say I just wrote a blog post and I want to make a LinkedIn post out of that. You have to now upload to ChatGPT and this and that. You can actually do it right within Ziply. You can even say, give me 5 variants of this post, read this blog post, and you can upload a URL or you can upload a PDF document or like even this podcast recording. So you'll get an MP3 out of this. If you give me this MP3, I will actually tell my prompt that, hey, take this MP3. I interviewed with Veronica and Katie, and they asked me to make a post about that. And in the second half, they asked me about my personal thing, write a personal post about that as well. And it will actually create those posts, and I will just schedule it then.
That's amazing. We're definitely going to do that. I want to test this out. What inspired you to start Ziply.AI?
Yeah. So, I have been in product and consulting for so long. About 2 to 3 years ago, I started following this trend on the internet called the creator economy. And I said, this is cool. I want to be doing something like that. And then I saw Reid Hoffman's interview as well, that there will be a time that there will be no full-time employees. You won't need full-time employees. You will hire expertise for specific things. So I started connecting the dots that only those people will be hired who have some sort of a social presence, who are known as thought leader. So what I decided to do was I started, I'm going to have an online presence myself on social. So I started with just writing anything. And I went through that usual phase of imposter syndrome. Like, oh, who's going to listen to me? Who am I? I'm not the expert. And it took me about a good 6 to 8 months to get over that. I said, you know what? Pitch it. I'm going to write it. I'm going to do this right. So I wrote my first post. I don't remember, 2022 or something. I mean, I have been on LinkedIn, but sharing like usual boring stuff. And on LinkedIn, there are only, what was the stat? 3% of people on LinkedIn write on a regular basis. That's it. Others don't, they have an account, they use it only when they need a job or some connection. That's about it. So I wanted to be in that 2 to 3%. So that's how it started. So I said, I'm going to write. So I started writing, and I said, you know what? Now it's time to create a newsletter. So I created my Substack. And then I ran into this problem that, okay, now I've created this long form article. Now I have to create a LinkedIn post. Now I'm reading it myself. And it was like too cumbersome. ChatGPT had just started coming out. This is end of 2022, I think, 23-ish. But it was very cumbersome. So I decided, you know what? I want to build a soft. Oh, then I have to add an image attached to it. So let's say I'm talking about top 5 methods of prioritization, and I list it out, and I have a blog post, and I have a LinkedIn post, and I have a Twitter post. I even dabbled with Facebook, but then I got out of that. Too much work. And now I have to create an image for it as well. And I said, wouldn't there be a tool where I could just say, hey, here's my blog, and do all these things for me? Right? That was my vision at that point of time. So I said, I'm going to build it myself. And I toyed around myself, figuring out how to do things. I looked at other tools. Then I met my co-founder. He and I used to work in the same company many years ago. And we decided, let's just build something. And he said, well, the problem that you are having, we have the same problem for B2B companies too. I mean, they are budget strapped. They're like 1 or 2 marketing people in most companies. They don't have the budget. They don't have the time. They don't have the expertise. Why don't we help them? So my personal pain point was the genesis of Ziply. But then instead of targeting individual like me, which eventually we want to do, by the way, it's just not how we are starting. So, and I'll explain how we are going to do that. But we decided to shift into the B2B and say, let's just get some revenue first. And so that's how Ziply got started.
Do you plan on crossing over into having both B2B and B2C?
Yeah, instead of calling it B2C, I'm just going to call it like creators, because they are technically not consumers. So even within that, there is categories. So for example, there are professional creators, right? And they have a lot of tools and money to spend. So maybe we will get to that point but there's a lot of competition on that side already. Imagine I am a AI engineer at NVIDIA. I have a lot of knowledge in my head. I just don't know how to write. I have never even logged into LinkedIn, but I want to have a social presence. And then there will be some people, I'm sure you have friends who don't even have a Facebook account yet because they worry about privacy and so on. So they will never be our customers eventually. It's that middle meat of expert. And I've seen that, when people, especially when people turn 40, 45, that's when they start realizing that, how do I share my knowledge now? How do I express my, past experience? Those are the ones we will target eventually.
That makes sense. And I'm seeing more and more in that category, especially like on TikTok and things. Everybody's just sharing LinkedIn, TikTok. I mean, I've learned so much from those 3% of individuals that are on LinkedIn.
Yeah. And eventually what we want them to, what we will eventually do, and this is still like a vision thing, is imagine you are an expert on something. We'll ask you a few questions here and there that, hey, what do you do? I am a supply chain expert. Okay, where do you work? Oh, I work at Walmart. Okay, how many years have you worked? So we'll do like an interview kind of a thing. And then based on that, we'll ask them, hey, based on what I have learned from you, it seems you can start writing, these 10 articles, like top 10 challenges of supply chain, impact of tariffs on supply chain, blah, 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 whatever, right? And we'll we'll take in like news in your area, your own personal background, and you will say, yep, yeah, these are good. Automatically create your LinkedIn post, Twitter post, Instagram, TikTok, maybe a video, maybe images, schedule it, and boom, 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 boom. The problem is today it's like very cumbersome to do all that. AI can get you the content and the images, but then putting it into these network, and then images have different, Instagram images is different size and LinkedIn is different. It's a lot of work. Automate that whole thing. So that's how we will get to the individual. I'm calling them micro influencers.
No, this was last night. I was for my side company. It took me like 3 hours just to put for 1 week's worth of content for our social media. Like you said, the images for Instagram is different than the image size for Facebook. And if you
Yeah,
want to do it right, it's a lot of work. So this is going to be a
exactly. We will be looking at video. We will be looking at search engine, and it's called AI EO, like AI optimized content.
Yeah.
GEO, different words and so on. So yeah, so eventually we will get to the micro influencers. We are solving that problem for the B2B. Imagine I'm a $50 million company, or let's sugar, for example. I'm one lone person who's doing all these things. I'm doing webinars, I'm doing product marketing work, I'm doing ads, I'm doing this. I just don't have the time. So people just don't do content. We have clients. So how much content do you write on LinkedIn? Oh, we will have one post per week. And that's not enough. You need more consistency is the key over there.
Most small businesses can't afford, those content.
Exactly. Exactly. And that's the channel partner angle that we thought. And that's actually a very interesting thing how we came about, even how we stumbled upon that too. But they actually have no social presence at all, and they just don't have any expertise. So we want to help them through the vendors have a social presence as well.
Oh, that makes a lot of sense. Okay, so you have this brilliant or company that's coming to life. What was the first step you took to bring this vision to life? I mean, there's only you and your co-founder, so I know there's a lot of steps involved.
I'm fortunate to have a good set of people I know in my network through my Haas network, through my work experience, and so on. I started reaching out to marketing teams, people who are in marketing roles, and just started asking questions around this. And is this a big problem? Is this something that you want to solve for? Do you worry about these problems? And obviously, you start out with some assumptions, and those assumptions may be valid, not valid. So what I was trying to get to was I was trying to get a sniff test. I call it my sniff test. Does this idea have any legs into it, for example? So, or is it like it should be dead in the water kind of a thing? So that's what I did first. I spoke to about 8 or 10 people who I knew in my network. I even reached out to random people on Twitter as well, and a couple of them actually responded, and I actually had a conversation with them too. You know how they say in products, sometimes you have to go outside your own network. So I did that too. And then, so we started validating that, yes, and this is even before we had a single line of code. And we said, you know what, this is a good idea. The problem was we started thinking on the product content production side of things, but ChatGPT was coming out very fast. And they said, you know what, let's not go into production side of it. Let's focus on the distribution side of it. So we validated that. So my co-founder said, let's just build a basic MVP and then we'll get it in the hands of the customers and our people we know. And that's what exactly happened. So I had already lined up these people, like 7 or 8 people who said, yeah, whenever you're ready, let us know. We'll try it out. And that's the first thing I did was just talk to a few people and just get a sniff test. Is this worth pursuing further, or is it dead on arrival?
No, that makes sense. And so what did that experience teach you with the sniff test, like landing your first few customers to try it out before you even like invested further?
I think we all start with some hypotheses and assumptions, and you have to be able to open to be challenged by them. And as I was talking to people, it turned out like, hey, this value proposition is not that important, but yeah, this sounds interesting, and so on. Uh, Also, how do you even talk about your own value proposition is always a challenge. What should I say? And in a product like ours, there's a lot of different value we provide, right? Repurposing content from one format to the other, creating new variations from the same content, or distributing this through employee, distributing this to channel partners. So how do you talk about it? If I had like 30 seconds to talk to somebody about my product, what would I say? And that's a very iterative process that I was trying to figure out as well, because I knew that eventually I will have to go to investors, I will have to go to customers, and I have to be able to convince them of the value proposition immediately. Because obviously everybody buys value, right? Nobody buys the features. So that's what I learned, how to talk about the value proposition.
Exactly. Like, so a lot of that, I see that, like, for founders who've never sold before, it's their first time. They have to sell themselves. They have to sell their product in a way where they're not selling the features, right? And a lot of people get stuck on that. What advice
Exactly.
would you give a first time business owner who has to sell their own product?
Yeah. So actually, it's funny that I actually wrote a blog post on like a Substack article on this one, how to be a seller as a founder. And a lot of people jump, and because of my advisory work at Berkeley Skydeck, which is a accelerator, sort of like a Y Combinator, but by Berkeley. A lot of them tend to jump into hiring their first salesperson immediately. And I said, what is the salesperson going to do? What are they going to talk about? Who are they going to talk about? Who will they call? You don't even know anything yet. So I tell them that, especially on the enterprise side, close your first 10 customers yourself and you learn a lot. Now, I used to think that way many years ago. This is before, between my consulting innings and my startup innings. I was unemployed, 2009, like the height of the credit crisis. And I was talking to a friend of mine who's actually my mentor now. He said, why did you go into sales? I said, sales? That's cheesy. I'm an engineer. But then I joined this startup called iChart. And guess what? What am I doing? Sales. So one of the very helpful books that really helped me at that time, I forget his first name, Bosworth is his last name. And the book is called Solution Selling. It actually changed my perspective. And I moved from selling to problem solving, which you as a founder are very good at. So don't consider yourself as a salesperson. You say you have a problem and you're going to help solve the problem. How will you solve the problem? And what will this problem impact? How will it impact them? Will it help them make more money? Will it help them save time, reduce risk, improve quality, improve experience? What will it do? So if you can just nail that part down, you are a seller eventually. Now, before you hire your salesperson, you have to figure out who your target market is, ICP is. And it's not a very straightforward thing. Most people apply mnemonics like, oh, I'm going to target SMBs between 10 and 20 million ARR. Those are all superficial ones. We have to go a little bit deeper into who your ICP is from a behavior, motivation perspective as well. Now you can if you have figured that out and you know that this is a value that they'll pay for, now you can hire your salesperson and SDRs and whoever. Okay, now get me 100 of these more, right? They are like in a repetitive kind of work. They are not in the creative part of the selling. That should be with the founders. So my advice to early founders is that there is no escaping. You have to do this. You have to learn how to sell to the first 10 customers. Because if you're not able to convince your value proposition, how do you expect a salesperson to do that? They are not magicians, right?
Or marketing.
Yeah, or marketing. Yeah. Get me leads. Get me leads. Okay. But how will you get the leads?
Yeah, like Katie, we talked about in a couple podcasts ago. And this is a good question for Deepak. When you are ready to hire your first employee, let's say in marketing, what type of marketing professional would you hire?
I think it depends. Answers varies on who you are trying to sell to, even within enterprise B2B. So for example, Ziply, we are going to be outbound, right? So I will probably hire some sort of a growth marketeer or a salesperson. In the sequence, I'll probably hire an SDR first, or a low between an SDR and an AE who can not only hunt but also close deals. But I will do that only after I have done 10 to 15 of them myself, because I want to give this person a playbook that here's how you talk about it. This is the problem we are solving. This is the ICP. This is the challenge. This is the situation. And these are these 10 FAQ or objection questions. And if they can figure out that on their own, if I have that formula built in. So I would first hire that one person, or maybe two people. We need to create competition. And then following that, once they are able to close, say, 50 on their own, then I go into the next hire will be like a growth marketeer. This is where I will say, okay, how do we start getting more leads, whether it's inbound, whether it's social, whether it, whatever method, conferences, whatever method would be, figuring out. So I'll probably hire a growth marketer then, but it depends upon which channel is going to be successful for us. I don't know the answer to that just as of yet. So, for example, if we think that inbound and content is getting us a lot of leads, so I hire these two salespeople, and during that period, they are hunting. But in the meantime, we are building our inbound or content. And if that's working, then I'll hire a growth marketer who can, put fuel on that one. But if we decide to if we do some experiments around, say, LinkedIn ads or Google ads or something, maybe then we'll hire somebody who's an expert on ads. So it will vary upon which channel is more conducive and which channel is getting more leads for us. I don't know the answer to that.
What do you think about founder-led content? Is that really important for you to create?
It's critical. It's actually critical. And I've seen, I actually follow about 10 founders who I really respect and admire. And they are also, they are a little further ahead than me. They are in the 1 million to 10 million ARR range. And I really respect them. And they put out all the content and they talk about problems they are seeing, patterns they are seeing. They educate, they inspire, they even share, they even share vulnerable stories about themselves. And I think they are getting traction. That will only work in the initial stages. I'm not sure if it works on the scaling side of things. So I have been trying to do that myself as well. I need to do a little bit more. So I have started posting about my own journey and so on in respect to Ziply. I already post a lot on LinkedIn around product management and my experiences, but now I'm tying that more into how it led
Right.
into Ziply. So I think it's important, Katie, because people want to see buying behavior has changed so much that nobody trusts corporations anymore and their
Right.
messaging. What are people saying? So a post, I keep saying that Elon Musk has more followers than X or SpaceX or Tesla has. When he says something, people follow, right? If Tesla puts out something, I'll probably just scroll through it, right? So, I mean, that's an extreme example. He has like 70 million followers or something. But that's the idea. People want to see the stories behind your product. People want to see the you. People want to see the human in you.
Yep.
Because I think that's what will matter in this AI world, the human touch.
Yeah, it's almost like founders are selling themselves in some perspective.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because so I'm buying software, I want to know, can I trust this person? Can I trust this product? If something goes wrong, will they be there to help me? Like in enterprise B2B, they want to work with people who can help them when some integration is not working, or we need to onboard some people. We need some training in this one. So you need to make sure that there are people who we can rely on. And that only happens if you put your own voice out there. And that's where the founder-led content becomes very important.
That's 100%, I think. And that was a good question. For Ziply, like, what's your go-to-market strategy as you're growing? Like,
I mean, we have a couple of ideas right now. Initially, we are just simple outbound, founder-led sales, rather. So you talked about founder-led content. We are actually founder-led sales. So both of us are tapping into our network. We go to conferences a lot. So we figure out how to manage free tickets and so on. That's another skill you have to learn, or at least heavily discounted tickets. And we don't do any booths or anything. We don't want to waste our money just as of yet. But I just go to conferences and talk to people and get leads there. Because I have a very clear milestone right now is let's just get 10 paying customers at our regular price, not the discounted price. Like, let's get to the first 10 paying customers. My next milestone will be let's get to 50 paying customers. And that's when we start hiring our first salesperson as well. In that first 50, I think we'll just have to be either founder-led sales or outbound. In parallel, we are also looking at inbound as well. But that's mostly for like brand amplification, awareness, making sure that people know us kind of thing. And the third thing we are looking at is, remember we talked a little bit about channel partner advocacy. And so one of the things we are going to look at is what if I go to distributors who have like hundreds of channel partners, resellers on their network, and they want to help them have a content presence and social presence. So if I can get one or two distributors, and we are talking to a couple of them actually already. So, and not the big ones. I'm not talking about the Teleres's of the world, but like the smaller ones, there are a lot of smaller distributors. So we go to these distributors and the value proposition is you don't have to pay anything. Your MDF funds from Microsoft or whatever will be able to fund your partner. And with one distributor, I can get like 30 partners.
right.
So that's the leverage angle that we are very seriously looking into.
That's brilliant. And you've also mentioned, like, I mean, we've all started our own organizations, everyone on this podcast at one time or another, and we've all made mistakes. It's inevitable that we're going to all make mistakes, and not necessarily for Ziply.AI, but is there anything that you would have done differently starting Ziply.AI in this early infancy stage so far?
I'm sure I'm still fumbling even now as we speak. No, I think, remember I said that initially I just reached out to my own connections. What I found was that some of them, and actually it was a good thing we figured that out a little bit early. What we found was that a lot of them were not ready. So the feedback I was getting was, oh yeah, you know what, this is a cool, but you know what, let me figure out my content strategy first before we start the amplification and advocacy part of it. And that was a big revelation to us that, if they are not ready, then they are not ready. So like, it's like, if you try to sell home rebuilding or remodeling to somebody, but if they are not ready, they are not ready. So how do we make them ready? So, the only thing I would have done differently was reach out to more people, but that's like standards, you want to reach out to more and more people. And we've started doing that already now. So I'm now working on my own LinkedIn outreach program as well, reaching out to conferences and reaching out to people. So I have now spoken to about 60 to 70 companies so far.
That's amazing.
I should do a count actually, but somewhere around that range. And we have about 14 customers who are trying out the product. So that's a good thing. That's another thing I would say is I actually gave the product to a few people who I knew, and actually they were not my ICP. So why did I do that? Because I wanted to get the kinks out of the product. How do people use it? How are they finding the flow? Is it cumbersome? So one feedback I get, oh, there's a very steep learning curve in here. Oh, that's a good one. So I analyze that. So enterprise B2B products tend to be steep anyway. So how do we make it easy now? So that's something we are actively looking at. Which parts are more cumbersome? Which parts are easy? So I use my guinea pig trials to basically help me figure out the kinks in the product.
How do you know when it's time to pivot? I was very interested. In your bio, I heard I charged three pivots. So how do you know when it's time?
I'm not sure if there is even a mathematical formula, but here are some things that we learned. This is like 13 years ago. We were actually selling into the market research industry. And when I say market research, I meant the primary market research industry. So we started getting initial traction in there and we were very excited. And I was actually brand new into the world of product and the only knowledge. Say that now you have a lot of Substack and podcasts to follow. There was nothing in that time. I just had a couple of books. My professor was Steve Blank, and that was my knowledge about entrepreneurship and product management. So we went into this market research industry and we started getting some very good revenue, but then at some point it started to flatten out. We were not growing. Now the big question is, at what point do you decide, how long do you wait? 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, 4 months? And that is a very subjective and a personal thing. Some founders might say, hey, it's been 2 weeks. We haven't found any new leads. Let's pivot. And some might say, hey, let's wait 2 more months. And there's a famous story of Figma. Figma did not have their first paying customer until what, 2 years, 2 or 3 years or something like that. They waited. They wanted to be perfect. That depends on founder to founder, their philosophies and patience levels and so on. So I think the general rule of thumb is that if you start seeing non-excitement in your customer base, they are not growing, and you hear things like, yeah, this is interesting, but the timing is not right. Maybe this is not for us, and so on. And in iCharts, there's actually another angle to it. Some products are new, like a new paradigm. And that takes time because you have to educate the market. It's less of a demand risk for Ziply at this point of time. It's more of an execution risk. But in the iChart time, there was actually a demand risk. Do people even want this thing? There are lots of products out there today where, I'm going to solve world peace, but does the world want to solve this peace? But we don't know that yet, right? So let's validate that first. Yeah, so I think it's a very difficult. I was not the founder of iChart, but I was employee number 2, so kind of like an early founder. I joined when there was like 0 customers. So my founder at that time, and we were discussing internally, hey, is this a market we want to be in? Should we just pivot into another market? And So we decided to pivot at that time because the market was not growing. On hindsight, what I learned was we should have waited a little bit more because we had a few customers who were still giving us money and validate the next pivot. We actually jumped into the second pivot a little too soon, in my hindsight opinion. We should have validated that a little bit. And it turned out that the second pivot was actually not a great one. We did get some interest. We were actually super excited one day. It's a very funny story that, so in the second pivot was a more self-service product. So you could go online, put a credit card, and, which we now call PLG, right? At that time, it used to be called self-service. I'm talking 2000 or something. They didn't call it PLG then. Now it's a very fashionable word. So one day, our servers crashed and I had to wake up my engineer in India, do something. You know why it crashed? Somebody from Wall Street Journal signed up and put our data visualization on the homepage, and that traffic broke our servers. So we were like, hey, this is a good problem to have. Wall Street Journal, they put a lot of charts, right? And they wanted to experiment with interactive charts on their journal stories. We actually ended up talking to them. But the problem was we didn't think through that whole angle very cleanly. So that pivot didn't quite work out. And then we had to lay off people. It's just me and my founder again. So we went from zero, so he, me, two people, we went up in that market research. Then we started going down that. Then we went to the other pivot, saw a little bit of interest. We got a lot of signups though, but nobody was converting. And this is like, in those days, there was no PLG software. So I was doing this all by myself. Cohort analysis, like how many people are signing up, how many people are activating, how many people are creating visualizations, how many people create a second visualization. So that number was dropping like crazy. So fortunately, we decided that pivot is not working out. We need to exit out of that as well. And fortunately, we found a third pivot. We actually got an email from the CEO of NetSuite. They said, hey, we want a Tableau-like product for our customers, which is embedded. Connected the dots, created the platform, I actually faked a demo right there and then, went into NetSuite, showed it to them, and we became their partners. Suddenly, we went back from the two of us all the way to 35 people. That actually was successful. But then I left. I left for personal reasons and other reasons. But by the time I left, we were roughly at 2 million ARR run rate, so within 18 months or something.
That's amazing.
So it takes time to figure out when to. So your question, Katie, was when to pivot. I don't have a perfect answer for that. And it's a very, very subjective and a judgmental type of a question, and a very tough one. I don't know at this point of time whether it's time for Ziply to move on into something else or should we continue. I don't know the answer yet. So we'll see.
I work at a startup too, so that's why I have these hard questions.
Yeah, exactly.
Always be ready to pivot though.
Yeah.
Yeah. So in your opinion, because you mentioned like there are a lot of you have some competitors already, but what I'm noticing the difference between Ziply.AI and what I've used in terms of your competitors is you are building AI into the platform a lot stronger than the other competitors are. To me, using something like Ziply.AI is amazing. It's going to save me time. It's going to pull in our partners. I mean, not everybody's going to have the same story. It's going to use my brand voice. It's going to be a game changer, right? In your opinion, when you talk about AI, what's the biggest misconception that you're hearing from people? Oh, is this going to take my job? Or, are you hearing those pushbacks from any of your target market or conversations that you're having out there?
From my target market, they are actually embracing the fact that because they're already doing this stuff on ChatGPT and Gemini already, I am just making it a little bit easier for them to do that. So in fact, actually in the back end, we actually connect to your own ChatGPT and so on for certain things. So it's actually, I am not seeing that kind of a pushback. I'm just seeing general people are worried about, and if you look at the Google keynote last week, even I was scared actually. What's going to happen? Like two companies are going to rule the whole world. But then I go back in history myself. I had my first computer at the age of 16. My father got it from Dubai or something. He thought this was a cool toy. So he gave it to me. And it was actually a Sinclair Spectrum with basic programming language built into it. And my father was an entrepreneur. He computerized his office. And I'm like, all the typists are gone. All the accountants that we had, they're all gone because everything is getting computerized. So I actually started my life seeing people lose jobs. Right? I don't know if you remember this, but in those days, after college or something, we used to take typing classes. And I took typing classes too. And like today, that's unheard of. Who takes typing classes? You're born with it. So there will be some disruption, yes, and this is a very fast one. But this has happened actually. And when the steam engine was invented, the Pope said this is Satan's vehicle. There was a lot of fear, a lot of fear. Every technological change brings that. When ATMs came in the banks, there was a lot of fear. People were feared that it will eat my card, it won't give me money, and so on. It took 10 years for ATMs to be adopted. So it takes time, and this is a big one, though. I have to admit the kind of things it can do. But I feel, as an optimistic person, there are so many inefficiencies in our world. Think about diseases that we have to still solve for, medical problems that we still have to solve for, hunger, and so on. And AI can certainly help. And then even within our own B2B world, there's so many inefficient processes. How we hire, how we purchase software, how we, look at a sales operations role. They're pulling hair all the time, like preparing data, preparing content. So there's a lot of inefficiencies in the world today that I think are ready to be solved with AI. And my bigger worry really is that people who don't know how to write good prompts, or English is not their thing, then it will just give you garbage out, right? Garbage in, garbage out. So the trick is to make sure that you use it appropriately. And I think as an industry, I have seen that with other past technologies. Think about like social, for example. There was a lot of angst about social. And, hey, who's sharing cat videos? And we are wasting time watching cat videos. But now look at YouTube. It's like a marketing juggernaut, right? Without YouTube, nobody can do any marketing, right? So things tend to fall into the right places as a human experience. Same thing will happen with AI. It will be used superbly well in certain cases where there is no human processes to do it. And in certain cases, it will just die out. The use case will just still not be there. I'm actually reminded of I was reading a book about an experiment. IBM actually came out with this product in the 70s, late 70s, forget it, sometime back. And the product was this. It was a microphone. You speak into it and the computer will type it.
Scribe.
Revolutionary, right? And they actually killed that product. They actually showed it to a few customers and they said, oh, no,
Really?
I'm not going to use it. Why? Oh, well, I'm in an open office and let's say I'm writing a note that we need to fire John and John is walking by. I'm not going to do that. So I would rather not speak into a microphone. I would rather just type. And it was actually funny. You know how they tested it? They actually they had the technology, but they didn't build it into a product per se. Well, so they did a fake test. So they invited their customers into their laboratory and they said, speak. And that microphone was actually going into another room where a person was listening with headphones and typing this, and that would go back into the monitor. And they thought it was magic, but they were just testing the process, whether they'll actually use it or not. So the technology was there for that kind of thing, but the world was not ready for that. But now we have mobile phone, and now we have Siri and Alexa of the world, and it's like, so I feel technology has a way of figuring out the use cases and settle down, and that's what will happen.
Absolutely. So what's next for Ziply.AI? I know we're coming close to time, so I'd just like to know.
For Ziply, we are looking for customers. We want to talk to people who are in B2B go-to-market teams who want to grow their pipeline through alternate channels. I mean, you should continue to do your ads and cold calling and email marketing. But if you want to open another channel on organic social, especially those companies who already are writing on social, our software can help you amplify that same messaging. So you already have a social content process and structure. Just use our product to amplify.
And where can the listeners connect with you to learn more?
So our website is www.ziply.ai. I can be reached at Deepak@Ziply.AI or contact@Ziply.ai.
Thank you so much. It was so great to have you on the podcast today.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It was a pleasure talking to both of you.
Thank you, Deepak. I am looking forward to see what's going to happen with Ziply.AI. This is definitely a need for us marketers.